We're live.
Recording in progress.
They're just, if anybody's on here, they're just setting up the live stream thingy.
Yeah, we're waiting for them to start. I gotta go change my stupid settings and stuff real quick.
I wonder if I have to.
I don't know why it does that.
Where do you do it at? From your phone?
Yeah. Well, there goes my kids. They're playing video games. I don't know if you heard that. I need to go shut my door.
I miss my son yelling at his damn TV.
I know. Like when he's in college, I miss that shit. I do.
Okay, so when you do that on your Facebook, where do you go?
I usually go to the actual like video, and then it usually has where you can edit private. It's not giving me that option today. I'm wondering if I'm something's up with that, you know. There's got to be a reason why I can't do that. But I can always just, you know, whatever. Let's see. Edit post. Yeah, I can't.
Oh, it says I can't go live there.
Yeah, I can't go. I can't, you know.
Okay, I'm going to turn that off.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Good.
Oh, I thought they were starting. I'm just going to share my YouTube video, I guess, to my Facebook.
Same.
Hey, Mac, I just emailed you a panic email that the 70H people in California just sent out.
Yeah, it's interesting. They have a 2x2 rule in California, which means that two principal spokesmen on each issue can speak for 2 minutes. And then after that, you're allowed to stand up and say your name and whether you're for or against it. That's it. So It's really not, I mean, it's
That's
an interesting
crazy
thing that they started during COVID because they got so many people calling in and testifying, and they haven't changed it. So that's the rule. Now, if something happens, so we've been standing down from encouraging people to go up there just to stand up for 20 seconds. But they're mischaracterizing, at least as I understand it, that you can go there and talk for whatever period of time. Obviously, it's limited, but anyway.
Is this showing live on my
YouTube?
YouTube?
The language that we've negotiated, I think, should be tougher on 70H, but they've gotten it that it's going to get banned. So I think that's good.
Yeah. I mean, some things are just not that complicated, you know. I mean, there's plenty in life that's way too complicated, but not everything.
I love Jeffrey.
Stephanie, are you on?
Yes, I am on.
So I'm not seeing how I can see the Q&As.
You'll need to log in
Yeah.
under your personal Zoom account,
Oh,
your laptop, and then make sure you mute your laptop so there isn't feedback. But I'm going to come in just 1 second.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely do that.
Yeah, I see your live, Misty.
Okay. Yeah, Jeffrey was the, I guess you would call him lobbyist, that I was with him when we walked around in DC to go to the different offices. And we hit
Mac,
up
do you need the meeting ID?
Oh, that's cool.
I'm getting it right now.
Okay.
We hit up a lot of offices, but we mainly focused on Arkansas too.
And this is just the script for the time that they want to be, either ask their question on video to as we promote to panelists, but I can.
Got it.
This is that is so lame.
What?
Just it's just lame. So many stupid issues on social media. Lame.
Mm. I still can't believe that one video went viral as shit.
Oh yeah. Oh, the comments though.
Yeah, I'm ignoring a lot of them. Whatevs.
All right. Since this seems to be working okay, I'm going to mute my audio and step away for just a minute.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
Hmm.
That was a delay.
What?
I heard me coughing.
Oh, on the thing. Yeah, there was like a tiny delay. It covers up.
Oh, I know why I'm coughing. My daughter's making green chili and it's the jalapenos.
Oh. Dude, I I get like that. I've been eating hot fries lately. And it makes me like sneeze and cough. Yeah, there's like a tiny delay. Okay. Let's see. I don't see I put my Rumble on, but I don't see it on there. I should have done the kick one.
The jalapenos are making all of us cough.
You have to like evacuate the house.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. Got that shared out. I just did both of our links.
Yeah, I did the same. Dude, I hate that, man. I just,
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
That's all right. I can always just, you know what? After it's over, I'll just post the replay up on my Facebook. Problem solved.
Why? What did you? What do you mean? Oh my God, the jalapenos.
Oh, dude, you're gonna make me want jalapenos. I'm sure we'll learn something today. We always learn something from these.
I love when people say till you run out of cryptum. Like,
Oh yeah, I saw that posted on X last night.
ugh. Wrong time to make green chili.
You might have to get like a mask or something, a respirator. Uh, well, at least when they start, we won't be on camera and you
I
can like
know.
cough to your heart's content. Man, this is.
Oh, what I was gonna say was I already don't take any. 1 to 4 days every week. And then every time when I come back and say, why do I need to quit taking it? Why do I need to suffer through life? They don't ever come back with a fucking answer.
They don't have one. I mean, that's stupid. I swear it's like people just want people to suffer because they're miserable in life. I mean, that's has to be what it is. Maybe they just don't even realize it, I mean, I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I was like that.
Yeah, me
You know
too.
what I mean? I was like that. I was just a miserable person, and
That
people would be happy, and I'd
that
be like,
yeah, that whole miserable, victimhood mentality attitude that I used to have. It's what got me noticed. It's what got my family to feel sorry for me.
And it just becomes like your personality, like who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see it with our haters. I once was them.
Yeah.
It's why I was in active addiction for so long. It's not easy finding a fucking dead body.
Yeah.
And having to live with that PTSD, reliving that moment over and over again of wondering if you did CPR right.
Well, I mean, not only a dead body, but that was your brother.
My brother.
Yeah. I mean, that's
my best friend,
Yeah.
So I wish nothing but the best for them, but hey, stop coming after me. Stop, I'm not trying to silence you. You don't have to like me. I don't give a shit if you don't like me,
Yeah.
But stop reporting my shit and stop trying to silence me that way because you're only making me level up harder.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, again, it's like, I've said it, like, I don't understand. It's like, we're just sharing our firsthand experiences. Like, it's not like we're going out and duping people into something crazy.
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
we're not making money on what we're doing.
We're just regular civilians trying to live our life and, do our thing.
Saving the next person who's struggling, whether it be with chronic pain, anxiety, depression, addiction, that right there is what's priceless.
Yeah.
And my advocacy proves that, as well as yours, Jennifer. I've watched you come up for years now. So, when we get those messages or those comments about, oh my God, I haven't had a pain pill, or I haven't went and called my drug dealer for my illicit fentanyl, that right there, just, we know what's to come.
Yeah.
I always tell them it gets better. It does.
It's just a good feeling because I remember when I first started feeling like, I mean, I still do every other day or so. I'm like still amazed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm still amazed. But I just remember that initial feeling like, holy crap, I finally found something that's going to work.
And if it wasn't for these guys, the
Yep.
American Kratom Association, I would have never found it in 2019.
Yep.
And when I found it, I wasn't looking for recovery. So
I think a lot of people don't realize how much they do behind the scenes either.
man,
I mean, seriously.
imagine being his age and having to fly every time.
Shit, I couldn't do it at my age.
Like 100 times already this year.
Then he had like pneumonia and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, good Lord. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it at my age.
It's like, I don't know, just seeing people. If you want to sit around and talk shit about the American Kratom Association, you ain't paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
You ain't paying attention. You're jumping on that let's talk shit train. And so once again, I'm gonna say we are not paid advocates. We don't
Matt,
get
can
paid.
you hear any construction noise in the background on my end?
I cannot.
All right, good. The city decided that today would be a good day to start paving the street in front of my house, which is a good thing, but I did not realize that was happening.
I feel that. We just had that, the new house has the whole sewer situation going on in the front yard, but the old house, they decided to repave our road. And it was crazy last week. I'm like, dude, there's just stuff happening all over the place.
And then my damn daughter fucking made green chili.
Yeah, that's what I was
thinking. Like, it's not something we make every damn day, so we ain't used to that, On her birthday.
7/7. That's such a cool birthday. My brother's birthday is the 11th coming up. 7/11. She needs to go buy a lottery ticket because look, 7/7, 25. 2 + 5 is 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Another birthday I get to witness.
Yep. And remember.
Yeah.
And to have good memories from it instead of you, nodding out 100 fucking times and your kids having to try and, take care of you.
Right. It's why I made that 4th of July video. People might not realize it's just little moments like that. I'm sitting over here grilling, or barbecuing. And then you got those motherfuckers in the comments that want to say you're making hot dogs. That's not barbecue.
So it appears that we've reached the 2 o'clock hour. We want to welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Mac Haddow.
Okay,
I'm the Senior Fellow on Public Policy with the American Kratom Association. And we're grateful to the ATR caucus, the Addiction Treatment and Recovery Caucus, for allowing us to share some ideas and thoughts about Kratom today. The leadership of the ATR caucus, Representative Tonko, Joyce, Dean, and Kiggins have led the way in expanding the understanding that we need to have as a society on the public policy options for addiction treatment and recovery of people that get trapped into these issues. I've asked today Jeff Laredo to join in this webinar. Jeff is a nationally recognized expert in addiction policy and has worked in the healthcare field for more than 30 years in the federal sector, having retired from federal civil service in 2018. He spent a significant amount of his time at the Office of Science, Policy, and Communications at the National Institutes on Drug Abuse and worked directly with Dr. Nora Volkol there at NIDA in helping to communicate the policies that the department had developed with the congressional offices. He served as a congressional liaison for NIDA. And I'm going to invite him to speak in just a minute. Just an administrative issue. If when we get to the question and answer period, you would like to ask a question, you have 2 choices. One is you can raise your hand and we will elevate you so that you can be seen and heard, or you can simply go to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and you can ask your question and we will answer those questions at the appropriate time as we go forward. And we'll ask you to obviously do that. We would like to give priority to the congressional staffers who have joined this call. I know that there are a number of advocates who have signed up, and that we are live streamed to some social media platforms, which is fine, of course. So we'll start with inviting Jeff to kind of launch his into this and give a description of his experience as we wrestle with public policies that are essentially needed in this area of addiction recovery. Jeff?
Thanks very much, Mac, and good morning for any of you who are on the West Coast. For you Washington folks, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I just have a few points to start us off. Overall, for me, and I hope for all of us, these issues around Kratom are all about health and wellness and science. And for all of my years at the NIH, over 20 years at NIH, I was your counterpart as congressional staff. I was the guy who you called when you had questions or complaints or anything else with the agency, and it was my job to do my best to help you out. And I think I did a pretty good job of that, getting you answers. At the same time, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher. I know a lot about these issues, definitely enough to get all of us in a little bit of trouble, and that's just fine. What I do know is exactly what you need to help your bosses craft quality policy and legislation. And that's hopefully a value add that I was able to help you with when I was at NIDA and my other roles at the NIH, and since then as well. As you probably know, NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, it was and is their job to do research and figure out all kinds of health issues around substance use and addiction. And Kratom research itself really started gaining steam around 2016, 17, 18. And NIDA spent over $100 million since then on Kratom research. So this is not a trivial thing. And as you probably realize, federal agencies can only have a few options as to how they show you something is important. And first in line is spending money. And while compared to the rest of the NIH budget, $100 million may not seem like a lot of money. To all of us normal humans, $100 million is a lot of money. And so what I care about and cared about, first and foremost, do Kratom products actually help people? And the research has gotten increasingly clear that the answer to that is yes. Do all things help all people at all times? No, that's not realistic. But do Kratom products, pure leaf Kratom products help people? They sure do. Similarly, are pure Kratom products dangerous? The research is increasingly showing the answer to that question is no. You can't ever say 100% yes or no on health and science and safety issues, but pure leaf Kratom products, by almost all the research that's out there, are safe for human consumption. Do we need to know more? Well, I spent most of my career working at NIH, so part of my job was always to say more science and more research is necessary. And that's because it's true. We're always going to need to know more. We're never going to have every answer to every issue. But because NIDA has spent significant money and time and effort on this, we know a lot about what Kratom can do for people. Similarly, and I know Mac will talk a lot about this, is the FDA and has the FDA been promoting good science and solid policy options around Kratom? And sadly, the answer is definitively no. For somebody like me, who spent my entire career working in public health, I'm the guy who should be waving pom-poms for the FDA. I should be all in on the importance of the agency and how we need their strength and expertise to do good things. On this issue, unfortunately, they were and are wrong on the science, and it's the science that I care about, that we care about. And that's, I know, something, Mac, that you'll talk about. This has been true ever since I got involved in the Kratom issue in 2012. So that's something for all of you I hope you'll pay attention to. And finally, and importantly for you as congressional staffers, one way that you can tell, not only for a federal agency to spend money agency-wide, one way you can tell how scientific leaders think there is potential for therapeutic agents and other areas of science is what they themselves spend their time on. And at NIDA, Dr. Nora Volkoff, who's been the director for over 20 years, she has a lab at the NIH. And part of the work that she personally is conducting and has been conducting for a few years now in her lab at the NIH is focusing on kratom. And that is a really big deal. As a senior policy advisor to Nora, one of the things I always did every day was pay close attention to what is she talking about? What does she care about today? What does she care about this week, this month, this year? Because she has, as you would imagine, relatively limited time and energy and money to spend on specific issues all the time. So one of the things that I always focused on was how is she spending her intellectual energy? And she was and is spending a chunk of her intellectual energy on trying to continue to figure out the therapeutic potential for pure leaf kratom products. That's a really big deal. And I hope that as congressional staffers, you'll pay attention to that and reach out to NIDA and ask them about that because it matters. She talks about kratom as a harm reduction agent. She talks about it as a potential pain reliever. She talks about it as a potential, one of many potential opioid addiction remedies. And there's a lot to learn there still. But in her lab at the NIH, the fact that they're looking at that at all, in many ways, is all you need to know. It's not the only thing you need to know, but it's a lot of what you need to know about the potential for these products. So Mac, I think I want to keep it that short so that we give folks an opportunity to ask questions after you're finished with some policy issues.
Jeff, thank you very much. I guess I would start first with the question that I am asked by state legislators and many in the Congress. What is kratom? Kratom is a leaf that's grown in Southeast Asia on a tree. It's part of the coffee family. And that's important when you consider the safety profile of kratom, because we know that just because it's a plant does not make it safe. We also know that there are good analogous situations, for example, caffeine. We know that caffeine is the most used psychoactive drug in the world. And we know that in order to protect consumers who normally are not impacted by in any serious way, the FDA has to impose regulations on the intake of caffeine per day. And they set that rate currently at 400 milligrams. We support regulation like that for kratom because we understand that kratom has about 50 plus alkaloids in the natural plant. There are some that we don't fully understand yet in terms of their effects. But what we do know that mitragynine, which is the principal alkaloid in the plant, does have an effect on the mu-opioid receptors in the brain. We know that it's a partial agonist, not a full-blown agonist like an opioid would be. And so it has different pathways in the brain in terms of how it affects people. And I could go on for days talking about the personal experiences that have been shared with me by kratom consumers. But I'd like to give you two examples. First is an older gentleman in Indonesia, where kratom it's sort of the birthplace of kratom there in Indonesia. And I sat in his very humble home, and he described as he was brewing a kratom tea, how kratom benefits his life. It helps him with aches and pains. It helps elevate his mood, much like a cup of coffee does in the morning to kind of approach the rest of the day. And he said that most of the time people are chewing the leaves during the day when they're out in the fields working, or if they're sitting at home and they brew this kratom tea, that they experience these beneficial impacts. And at higher doses of it, it can actually alleviate even significant pain. So they swear by it as a possibility. He told me about family members who have been suffering from addictions to alcohol and to other drugs. And he said that kratom helps them to withdraw from those kinds of circumstances. And this gentleman was speaking from the heart, telling about his own personal experiences. And obviously that has impact as he described why kratom has been used for centuries in Southeast Asia without any serious adverse events being reported. And then here in the United States, there are probably 23 million kratom consumers in the United States. They have access to kratom and have had since just after the Vietnam War, when our soldiers came home and they self-imported kratom. And then after the war, there was a significant influx of the Hmong population as they immigrated to the United States. And kratom was a part of both their culture and their diet. And they also brought kratom into the United States. And that percolated along through the 70s and 80s. And then we found some very creative chemists in smoke shops and other kinds of places where they started tinkering with it because they saw this growing popularity of a plant material that had some psychoactive effects, not as powerful, that would drive people to become very, addicted to it. And so they started messing around with it to find out if they could make it more powerful. And that continued to the early 2009. There were 9 deaths reported in Sweden in a 12-month period attributed to a kratom product that was widely distributed on the internet called Krypton. And so that sparked an obvious concern and an appropriate concern among public health officials around the world. Some European countries banned kratom. The United States started that process there in 2009, started working on it. They imposed an import alert on kratom raw materials coming into the United States, believing, this is the FDA, believing that would be a ban on kratom in the United States. However, it didn't work out that way because the import alert structure just wasn't designed to be a blanket import. Congress designed it to be a method by which you would identify a specific vendor that was selling a contaminated product, and you would red alert that product and that vendor from being able to ship into the United States. And then you would provide a remedial pathway for them to fix the problem, whatever it was. And obviously with botanical materials, there are occasions where you end up with salmonella and E. coli, and certainly kratom is no more immune from that than you would on fruits and vegetables that come into the United States. And you see periodically those kinds of things. So good supply chain regulations are critically important to protect the wholesomeness of those products, and kratom is included in that. But we think that the regulations need to go further in terms of how products are formulated, because once in the United States, we found that there were, in order to get it here, you had to grind up the leaves into a powder. And people could take that powder and obviously mix it into hot water and brew a tea, different from the leaves that are over in Southeast Asia. And then the one thing about kratom that is true is that it's very bitter tasting. And so people found that they could put it in capsules and they would bypass the taste buds and they could have the benefits of kratom. There were some individuals who decided to do what we do with coffee, where you extract it. When you go to a Starbucks, you buy a Supreme Latte, which is an extracted coffee product. They did that with kratom too. But the key part of that, the component of the manufacturing process, is that it has to use food grade solvents that are approved by the FDA so that you don't have an enhanced strength or potency to that product that could become dangerous because you synthesize through that process along the way. And today we have that threat that looms against the kratom industry because there are people that have taken a metabolite of the kratom plant, meaning that it occurs after the plant starts drying, and it's called 7-hydroxymitragynine. It is a powerful chemical. When isolated and concentrated, has the same effects as opioids, and they need to be regulated strictly in order to protect kratom consumers who think they're buying kratom but may end up with a 7-OH product. And that's something from a public policy standpoint we want to address. And in fact, there will be new legislation filed at the federal level that will specifically restrict that kind of adulteration of the kratom plant into product formulations and restrict it only to those products that are made with extract products that are made with food grade solvents approved by the FDA. Now we know that the FDA has a position on kratom has evolved. Back in 2016, they attempted, in its first attempt, to have kratom scheduled. And there was an outcry from kratom advocates at that time, numbered probably around 5 million people in the United States. And their outcry was heard by the Congress, and it resulted in 51 members of Congress telling the DEA not to schedule it, 26 Republicans, 25 Democrats. On the Senate side, Senator Orrin Hatch from Utah, and Senator Bernie Sanders sent a letter, and you can't get more bipartisan than that in terms of the philosophical divide, because they were convinced that this was an overreach by the DEA. And so for the first time in 82 previous attempts to schedule as a Schedule I substance, the DEA rejected it. The FDA tried again in 2018, and they put in factor 6 of the 8 factors that are required under the Federal Controlled Substances Act, a provision that said that kratom posed an imminent threat to the health and safety of the American people. And they specified all these things. They forgot to mention, by the way, of the 9 deaths in Sweden, that scientists there 2 years later in a peer-reviewed published article disclosed that, in fact, that product that was called kratom was adulterated with O-desmethyltramadol, the chemical that's used in the production of the opioid tramadol. And so that's what killed them in a lethal dose. It wasn't kratom at all. But the FDA was on a roll at that point, and it took Dr. Brett Giroir, who was the Assistant Secretary of Health in 2018, when he evaluated the recommendations by the FDA, and he withdrew the recommendation for scheduling the second time that that the HHS had done so, and he characterized the FDA's evidence and data as embarrassingly poor evidence and data and a failure to consider the overall public health. He said that because people were finding, and NIDA has verified it with good science, that kratom can, in some cases, be a way for people to withdraw from opioid addictions. And that's attracted a lot of interest by NIDA, and some of the studies that have been done prove that to be the case. Johns Hopkins University published a survey of more than 3,000 opioid addicts that use kratom, and 87% reported a reduction in the withdrawal symptoms, and that 35% replaced the opioid with kratom within a year. Those are strong numbers that indicate that there's potential here. But that potential can be undermined when we have dangerous products that are formulated incorrectly, using the old adage, the dose makes the poison. We think that kratom has to be regulated. 18 states have passed what we characterize as the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which specifically puts into place those restrictions that we advocate for, meaning that there are restrictions on how products are formulated, how much 7-hydroxymytrogynine can be contained in a product, making sure that they use food-grade solvents to extract them when they do extraction methodologies, and age restricted, and label it appropriately. We think the federal legislation will go a long way towards doing that as well. But the people that I have spoken to in hundreds of hearings around the country that are pro-kratom advocates all say the same thing. They want the access, protected legal access to kratom. And the states that banned kratom, when the FDA was in their full crusade to have it banned, there were 6 states that did. This year, Rhode Island, which was one of the states that banned it at the behest of the FDA, rescinded the ban and passed the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. Just last week, it was signed by the governor. We think that that documents the evolution of even the FDA's view of kratom. When the FDA did their own single ascending dose study on kratom, they determined in a study that kept increasing the dose with the thought they would get to a level where a serious adverse event would occur. And they found that at 12 grams, a huge amount of kratom consumed in a 5-minute period, there were no serious adverse events. And the only thing that they saw was nausea, which was experienced both by the kratom population and in the study and the placebo group in the study, because that much plant material ingested in that short period of time is going to cause you to have nausea. And the FDA itself concluded that kratom appears to be well tolerated at all dose levels. And they now are proceeding with the human abuse potential study, which should be done sometime in the next 3 years. Importantly, the FDA was called by a federal judge to appear in his court because they had brought a case against a kratom importer who was mislabeling the kratom coming into the United States in an attempt to bypass the import alert, calling it fertilizer. He was stone cold guilty. And when it came to and he pled so. When it came to the sentencing hearing, the judge said, I want the FDA to appear before me, and I want them with documents and their experts to tell me why kratom is dangerous. And he had reasons to do that because of conflicting testimony during the trial. The FDA formally refused to appear and said officially in a court document in 2024, they did in 23, end of 23, that they had not yet determined whether kratom was dangerous or not. Today, the FDA argues that the problem with kratom is that people are sitting at home self-medicating with it. Now, we understand that if you're using it for a therapeutic purpose, that you simply have to have some regulatory controls, and that's what we advocate for, so that people aren't going to be harmed for it. But all of you know in your experience in this field of addiction and recovery that there are pathways for individuals who are suffering from these addictions that need help. And that's why Dr. Volko calls this a potentially significant harm reduction tool when she testified before the Congress. Rather than take it away, that lifeline away from people, we should make sure that it's a safe kratom product, that it's properly labeled, and that it's accessible to people. And that's what we want to do as we go forward. So we're grateful for this opportunity to present this information. We have a library of scientific peer-reviewed published articles, and the numbering in the hundreds, most of which were funded by NIDA, that we'll be glad to share with your offices if you would like to see it. It's a huge library, but it documents what I just told you about the safety profile of kratom. And we also are available to come and meet with you in your offices as the need requires. We'll now open it up for any questions that you might have. You can do it, as I said earlier, by hitting the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, or you can simply raise your hand and we'll elevate you to be a panelist here so that we can answer your question as we go forward. So I'll open it up to the group for that purpose and encourage you, if you have a question about this, to simply do that. And while people are thinking about that, I mentioned earlier that there were 18 states that have passed the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. We started that in 2019, and it has had a groundswell support. There are, and I'll just be right up front about it, there are people who claim that they've lost loved ones to a kratom death. And unfortunately, when we look at the circumstances and the facts surrounding that, almost to a certainty, we find that in those cases where reports are done, that there are other factors involved. The FDA and NIDA conclusively state in their materials that kratom deaths are rare, and when they do occur, it's generally polydrug use and other underlying health conditions. And we know, or adulterated products, and we know that's true. And yet there are no standardized post-mortem investigation techniques that allow for a good view of this to be taken. So I think that that's a significant issue as we go forward. I'll go to some of the questions that we're seeing. Explain how pain patients are being abandoned and alternatives must be available to them. This is an interesting public policy, which I know all of your offices would struggle with, and that is that you really have to be able to provide alternatives for people that are really out in the cold on some pain management therapies that have been restricted by the FDA in terms of prescriptions for these dangerously addicted opioid products. Wherever you sit on that spectrum to say, well, we've gone too far or we haven't gone far enough on opioid restrictions, the one thing that's true about kratom, it is not the silver bullet to be like an opioid, by the way. It does not knock the pain down the way that an opioid does. But I have heard hundreds and hundreds of people say that it makes it manageable for them. And we have testimonials on our website, americankratom.org, from kratom consumers who will tell these stories over and over again, including a SEAL Team 8 member who reports in his testimonial that because of service-related injuries, his life was ruined. He lost his family. He was addicted to opioids that the VA provided to him. He lost his family, his home, and by referral of a fellow veteran in the program said, you should try kratom. And he did, and he got his life back. You hear those stories over and over and over again, and they're powerful in terms of addressing the issues that we're obviously concerned about. We think that the way to right the ship and to move forward here is for there to be a federal policy that allows for the appropriate access to kratom products without the FDA getting in the way of access, as NIDA has concluded based on their research, that too often people just don't have access to alternative therapies that should be done there. We recognize that the FDA is concerned about people self-medicating, but that's why the regulation of the products can be done. Many people tell me, well, the FDA is just following the law. Under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, passed in 1994, they grandfathered in all substances that were in commerce prior to 1994. Kratom has been here since the early 70s. The FDA won't recognize any of the documentation. The only other pathway for a dietary ingredient like kratom to be added and authorized for sale in the United States is through the DSHEA provision for a new dietary ingredient notification, which requires a manufacturer to submit safety data that they've accumulated for their particular product under the conditions of use. Every NDIN that's been submitted to the FDA has been summarily rejected. Experts in the field, former FDA officials who have evaluated those NDIN applications, have concluded that the FDA just is exhibiting their bias. But I think things are changing, and we hope that the bill that's before you that is going to move forward. We see some of the misinformation that is circulated about kratom can be a problem because it then results in legislators thinking that kratom is in fact bad, when it really is the adulterated form. In this case, the sweeping adulterant is 7-hydroxymytrogynine, 7-OH products. They isolate and concentrate 7-OH, which is a metabolite that never, ever occurs at more than 2% of the overall alkaloid fraction of that 100 some alkaloids 50 plus alkaloids in the kratom plant, never gets above 2%, which means that a product that is manufactured would never have more than 0.4 milligrams of 7-OH in the product. And yet we are seeing products out there that are 100 milligrams. And it is a full-blown agonist to the mu opioid receptors, meaning it has the same effects as opioids. And that's the battle that's going on right now to protect the safety of consumers, and why we think federal legislation is so important. This battle is raging at the state level. We're involved in KCPA, Kratom Consumer Protection Act legislation around the country, and we continue to pursue that to add to the 18 states. We ask that the Congress consider, and certainly would welcome, a discussion with the ATR caucus about how kratom can be one of the tools that's available, as Dr. Volko says, for people to have significant harm reduction access to a product that actually works. So we thank everyone for your allowing us to have these few minutes with you. Again, I reiterate that we would welcome outreach to have access to the research materials that are available, and to have the discussions that may follow on from this brief time that we've had together. But we thank you. We appreciate all of the time that you put into it, and look forward to further discussions. Thank you.
All right, so I guess that's it. Uh-oh, hold on. I don't have a. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. I had you on mute still. Sorry.
I'm still
Well, I
reading
mean,
that thing.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, I wonder how many people was in the audience.
Yeah, I'm wondering too. Because I mean, that was for like congressional people, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, there was a good amount. All right. Well, I guess do you want to stay on or go off?
Go off. It's my daughter's birthday, so we're
Yeah.
gonna go do some
Go
things today.
enjoy that chili, that jalapenos, man.
But freaking green chili, she's still making it. She came downstairs. She's like, "Can I use the blender?" Because she didn't want to interrupt in the live, but we had
Yeah.
it muted. But
All
yeah,
right.
so that's what that was about. Pretty much everything that we always watch on the webinars, anyways. What he's telling the new people that, the must be higher ups
Yeah.
that attended it. So
Hopefully a lot of people did.
yeah, because we can't see on our end how many people's on their end.
All right.
So.
Well, bye everybody.